Welcome to the multiverse of anime, where heroes fall and legends rise in ways you never imagined. If you love exploring the moments that define our favorite characters, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more mind-bending stories. The winds howl across a battlefield that shouldn't exist anymore, where the Cell Games arena once stood proud and pristine. Only scorched earth remains. Chunks of rock float impossibly in the air, defying gravity itself, as if the very laws of physics had been broken by the sheer force of what happened here. A lone figure stands in the devastation. Orange gi torn, weighted clothes long discarded, blood trickling down his face, but his eyes burn with a fire that could reignite dead stars. In the history of Dragon Ball, thousands of Kamehamehas have been fired. Master Roshi's first demonstration that destroyed Fire Mountain. Goku's desperate blast against Vegeta that lit up the sky. The one that should have killed Frieza on a dying Namek. Each one legendary in its own right. Each one a testament to the Turtle School's ultimate technique. But only one was perfect. Not perfect in power, not perfect in size, not perfect in the way most people think about perfection. This Kamehameha broke every rule about what the technique was supposed to be. It rewrote the textbook on combat itself, and in doing so, it saved not just Earth but the entire universe from a threat that even gods would later acknowledge. The camera pulls back to reveal Cell, the ultimate bioandroid. His perfect form trembling. For the first time since achieving his final transformation, genuine fear flickers across his features. Behind him impossibly stands Goku, the Saiyan who was just in front of him a heartbeat ago. Time seems to stop. The Z-Fighters watching from the sidelines can't process what they're seeing. Even Vegeta, Prince of all Saiyans, stands slack-jawed. Because Goku isn't just behind Cell, he's already in position. Hands cupped at his side, that familiar blue glow building between his palms. 4 syllables that would echo through eternity. KAMEHAMEHA. Cell begins to turn, his superhuman speed pushing every limit, but it's already too late. The perfect Kamehameha has already been born. To understand why this moment would reshape the cosmos, we need to go back. Back to when a simple farmer found a boy with a tail. Back to when that boy learned his first technique from a turtle hermit. And back to the moment Goku realized that sometimes the perfect attack isn't about winning at all. The blue light erupts, not forward like every Kamehameha before it, not in a wide arc meant to overwhelm with raw power. This blast is different, focused, surgical, point blank. The kind of range we're missing is impossible, where defense becomes meaningless, where all of Cell's stolen techniques and regenerative abilities mean nothing. Piccolo feels it first, that subtle shift in Goku's ki that signals something unprecedented. This isn't the Goku who fought with wild abandon against Frieza. This isn't even the Goku who pushed beyond Super Saiyan's limits. This is something else entirely. A warrior who has finally understood that true strength isn't measured in power levels. Gohan watches from the sidelines, fists clenched, unable to comprehend what his father is doing. Just minutes ago, Goku had the upper hand. He was matching Cell blow for blow, their power shaking the very foundations of the earth. So why this? Why now? Why risk everything on a technique that seems so simple yet feels so wrong? The answer lies not in the present, but in a conversation that happened behind the sealed door of the hyperbolic time chamber. A father and son training for a battle that would determine Earth's fate. But Goku wasn't just training Gohan's body. He was preparing him for a truth that would shatter everything the young warrior believed about combat, about power, and about what it truly means to protect those you love. As the blue energy engulfs Cell's perfect form, as the android's scream pierces the air, one thought races through the minds of everyone watching. This is impossible. Goku doesn't fight like this. He doesn't use deception. He doesn't rely on tricks. But what if this isn't a trick at all? What if this is simply Goku finally becoming the warrior the universe needs him to be? The explosion begins, but the real story? The real story started long before this moment. In the depths of space, where a warrior learned that sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when not to use it. The explosion fades, smoke and debris settling like a shroud over the battlefield. But to understand how we arrived at this impossible moment, we must journey back 3 years. Back to when the Earth's greatest defender was nothing more of a memory floating somewhere in the cosmos. Planet Yardrat, a world so distant from Earth that its purple skies have never known the light of our sun. Here, among beings who look nothing like Saiyans, Goku learned to do the impossible. Not to fight harder, not to power up further, but to bend space itself to his will. The Yardratians watched their strange visitor with curiosity and caution. This Saiyan who fell from the sky in a battered Ginyu Force pod, barely alive, carrying wounds that spoke of a battle beyond imagination. They knew nothing of Frieza, nothing of Namek's destruction, nothing of the Super Saiyan legend reborn. They only knew that this warrior's energy felt different, pure, despite its overwhelming power. For months, Goku struggled with their teachings. Instant transmission wasn't about strength or speed. It required something foreign to a Saiyan's nature. Patience, precision, the ability to feel key signatures across impossible distances and fold reality to reach them. Every lesson frustrated him. Every failure reminded him that his friends on Earth were waiting, hoping, praying for his return. Then came the breakthrough, not in a moment of intense training, but during a quiet meal with his Yardration hosts. Goku reached for a bowl of their strange purple fruit, and suddenly he wasn't reaching anymore. He was simply there, hand already grasping what his mind had focused on. The Yardrations erupted in celebration. Their student had finally understood. But Goku saw something they didn't. In that instant of transmission, time had seemed to stop. He could see everything, every possible angle, every opening, every vulnerability. What if this technique wasn't just for travel? What if it could be weaponized in a way no opponent could predict or defend against? Back on Earth, darkness was already spreading. Dr. Jiro's laboratory hummed with mechanical life as his greatest creations stirred. Androids designed with one purpose: destroy Son Goku. The old scientist's revenge had taken decades to perfect, fueled by the bitter memory of the Red Ribbon Army's destruction. He had studied every battle, analyzed every technique, prepared for every possibility. Except one. Trunks arrived from the future with warnings that chilled the blood. In his timeline, Goku never made it home. A heart virus claimed Earth's defender before the androids awakened. What followed was 17 years of hell. Gohan dead, Piccolo dead, Vegeta dead. Every Z-fighter reduced to memory, while androids 17 and 18 turned the world into their playground. But this timeline would be different. Trunks brought medicine, hope, a chance to change fate itself. The Z-fighters trained with desperate intensity. Vegeta pushed beyond all limits in his quest to surpass Kakara. Piccolo meditated on powers long forgotten. Even Krillin and Tien knew that their current strength meant nothing against the coming storm. But through it all, one question haunted them. Where was Goku? Space rippled, reality bent, and suddenly he was there, standing in a Capsule Corporation yard as if he'd never left. That orange gi, that impossible smile, that energy that made even Vegeta step back in shock. Goku had returned, but something was different. The way he moved, the way he watched everything around him, as if seeing angles and possibilities that existed between heartbeats. The reunion was brief. Joy turned to dread as Trunks' predictions began manifesting. The heart virus struck exactly as foretold, bringing Earth's strongest warrior to his knees just as the mechanical terrors awakened. For days, Goku burned with fever while his friends faced nightmares given form. Android 19 and 20 fell, but they were merely appetizers. The true horrors, 17 and 18, proved unstoppable. Vegeta's pride shattered along with his bones. Piccolo's fusion with Kami created power unimaginable, yet still fell short. And somewhere in the shadows, something worse than any android stirred. Cell, Dr. Giro's ultimate creation, a biomechanical horror that combined the cells of every great warrior designed to absorb the androids and achieve a perfection that would render gods obsolete. While the Z-fighters chased 17 and 18 across the globe, Cell grew stronger, smarter, more dangerous with every passing day. Goku awoke to a world transforming into nightmare. His body was healed, but his spirit troubled. In fevered dreams, he had seen possibilities. Futures where Earth died 1,000 different ways. But in one dream, one singular vision, he saw something else. Goku, older, stronger, radiating power that dwarfed anything Goku could imagine. The key to victory wasn't in Goku's fists. It was sleeping in his sun. The hyperbolic time chamber beckoned. 1 year inside, 1 day outside. Father and son entered together, but what emerged would be something entirely new. Goku trained Gohan's body, yes, but more importantly, he studied his son, watched how anger transformed the gentle boy into something terrifying, remembered every moment from Raditz to Frieza where Gohan's hidden power had exploded forth. A plan began to form, not a Saiyan plan of overwhelming force, but something subtler, something that required Goku to do the unthinkable, to lose, to step aside, to trust in potential over certainty. Meanwhile, Cell achieved his perfect form. The Earth itself trembled at his birth, and his first act was to announce the Cell Games. 10 days, a tournament to decide Earth's fate. The arrogance of perfection demanding worthy opponents. Goku emerged from the time chamber transformed. Not just in power, though his mastery of Super Saiyan was complete. The real change was invisible. Hidden behind that same carefree smile, he had learned to see the board, not just the pieces. And on that board, he wasn't the king. He was a sacrifice, positioning itself for the perfect exchange. The 10 days passed like heartbeats. Mr. Satan's media circus turned a death match into entertainment. Z-fighters gathered, each nursing private doubts. And Goku spent his time fishing with Gohan, sharing meals with Chi-Chi, playing with baby Goten as if these weren't possibly his last days on Earth. Because Goku knew something none of them could guess. The perfect Kamehameha wasn't about the technique, it was about the moment. The precise instant where showing your hand forces your opponent to reveal theirs. Where a father's faith becomes a son's awakening. Where defeat transforms into victory. The Cell Games arena waited, a simple ring in a wasteland, but it would become the stage for something unprecedented. As our warriors approached that fateful day, none could imagine that Goku's greatest technique wouldn't be measured in power levels or destruction. It would be measured in trust. The morning of the Cell Games arrived with an unnatural stillness. No birds sang, no wind stirred, as if nature itself held its breath, knowing that by sunset, the world would either be saved or enslaved. Mr. Satan's helicopter descended toward the arena in a spectacle of manufactured bravado. The world champion flexed for cameras, spouted rehearsed lines about tricks and light shows, completely oblivious to the fact that he was walking into a graveyard. His students, Karoni and Pirushki, matched his arrogance with their own posturing. The media ate it up, desperate to believe that this was just another tournament, another show. Cell stood in the center of his ring, a statue of perfect patience. His tail swayed with hypnotic rhythm as he watched the circus approach. These insects amused him. Let them have their moment. Their terror would be all the sweeter when reality shattered their delusions. Then came the real warriors. No fanfare, no helicopters, just figures materializing at the edge of the battlefield, as if stepping out of the air itself. Goku led them, his expression serene in a way that made Piccolo's skin crawl. Behind him, Gohan tried to match his father's confidence, but his young eyes betrayed the storm within. Vegeta's scowl could have curdled milk. Trunks gripped his sword's hilt with white knuckles. Krillin muttered prayers to Kami, who no longer existed as a separate being. Mr. Satan approached Cell with all the wisdom of a moth drawn to flame. His championship belt gleamed in the morning sun as he spouted challenges and accusations. Cell didn't even look at him. One casual backhand sent the world champion flying into a mountain, where he wisely decided to stay down and nurse his miraculously minor injuries. Now the real games could begin. Goku stepped forward before anyone could object. That smile, that damned smile that had preceded every impossible victory and crushing defeat. Mind if I go first? Vegeta's protest died on his lips as he truly looked at Kakarot. Something was different. The clown prince of the Saiyans moved with purpose. Each step calculated, each breath measured. This wasn't the warrior who had fought with wild abandon against Frieza. This was something new, something dangerous. Cell's perfect features shifted into genuine interest. By all means, Goku, I've been waiting for this. They faced each other across 20 feet of stone, two powers that could shatter planets with a gesture, reduce mountains to memory with a thought. The air between them crackled with potential energy. Then, without warning, they moved. The first exchange happened faster than human eyes could follow. To the cameras recording for the world, the fighters simply vanished, replaced by shockwaves that spiderwebbed the arena floor. But to those with the power to see, it was poetry written in violence. Goku's fist met Cell's block. Cell's knee drove toward Goku's ribs only to find empty air. A spinning kick countered by a palm strike. Each movement flowed into the next like water, neither gaining advantage, both testing limits. They separated, not even breathing hard. Cell's smile widened. Excellent, you've been holding back. Goku's response was to power up. Golden energy erupted around him as his hair stood on end, crackling with electric fire. The transformation to Super Saiyan was so smooth, so effortless, that even Vegeta had to admire the mastery. No wasted energy, no dramatic screaming, just power, pure and controlled. Cell matched him, his own aura flaring to life. Shall we use our full power from the start? No games, no gradual escalation? Sounds good to me. What followed was combat on a scale the Earth had never witnessed. Each punch created sonic booms that shattered windows hundreds of miles away. Their movements carved trenches in the ground. Their clashes sent shockwaves that knocked news helicopters from the sky. Goku flowed like water, never where Cell's attacks expected him to be. Cell adapted with mechanical precision, each exchange teaching him more about his opponent's style. To Gohan, watching from the sidelines, his father had never looked more powerful. Every movement was perfect, every counter timed to the microsecond. So why did dread pool in his stomach? Why did his father's eyes keep flicking to him between exchanges? The battle raged across the arena and into the wastelands beyond. Mountains became casualties of their war. Ancient stone formations that had stood for millennia were reduced to powder in seconds. Through it all, both combatants wore the same expression, not strain, not anger, but something almost like joy. Two perfect warriors finally finding a worthy opponent. Then Goku did something unexpected. In the middle of a combination that had Cell on the defensive, he stopped, floated back, lowered his guard. That's enough warming up, Goku said, and everyone watching felt their blood freeze. Warming up? This devastating battle had been a warm-up? Cell's eyes narrowed. Indeed, shall we begin the real fight? Actually, Goku's smile never wavered. I want to show you something first, my best technique, the attack I've perfected beyond anything else. Vegeta spat in disgust. Fool! Never reveal your ultimate technique before you need it. But Goku was already moving, floating higher, hands pulling back to his side in a motion every warrior recognized. The stance of the Turtle School's greatest technique, the Kamehameha. Cell laughed, a sound like breaking glass. The Kamehameha? How disappointingly predictable. I've analyzed that technique from your cells, Goku. I know every variation, every possible application. You cannot surprise me with something I helped create. Goku's response was to begin charging the attack. Blue energy sparked between his cupped palms, growing brighter, denser, more powerful with each passing second. The ground beneath him began to crack and rise, drawn upward by the sheer gravitational force of the gathering energy. Kea. The first syllable rang out like a bell. Piccolo felt his enhanced Namekian hearing pick up something else. A subsonic hum, barely perceptible, underlying the familiar chant. Me? The energy doubled, tripled, quadrupled. This wasn't just any Kamehameha. The power Goku was channeling surpassed anything he'd shown against Frieza, anything he'd demonstrated in 3 years of training. Cell's confidence wavered for just a moment. The sheer magnitude of what was building between Goku's hands defied calculation. But no matter, he had perfect barrier. He had regeneration. He had the combined defensive techniques of every Z fighter. One attack, no matter how powerful, couldn't defeat perfection. Time seemed to slow. Krillin noticed it first, his eyes widening in shock. In that fraction of a second between syllables, Goku's image seemed to flicker, like a television with bad reception, there for one frame distorted the next. Gohan gasped, recognizing something from their year of training. His father wasn't just charging a Kamehameha. He was preparing to move. The final syllable never came. Where Goku had floated, only empty air remained. The massive energy he'd been building simply vanished, as if it had never existed at all. Cell's eyes widened, his perfect processing power struggling to comprehend the impossible. Where was the attack? Where was Goku? The answer came in the form of a whisper directly behind him, so close that Cell could feel breath on his neck, so quiet that only he could hear it. Ha! The perfect Kamehameha erupted point-blank into Cell's back. Not the massive wave Goku had been charging, but something far more focused. All that terrible energy compressed into a beam no wider than Cell's torso, burning with heat that could core a star. At this range, defense was meaningless. Dodging was impossible. All of Cell's stolen techniques, all his perfect calculations, meant nothing. Because Goku had done the impossible. He'd used instant transmission not just to move, but to carry a fully charged attack with him. The energy that should have dispersed when he vanished had instead been folded through space itself, arriving with him at his destination. Cell's scream shattered mountains. His perfect form was engulfed in blue fire that burned beyond the physical, searing into the very essence of his being. The Z fighters watched in stunned silence as their greatest enemy was consumed by an attack that redefined what the Kamehameha could be. But even as Cell's form was swallowed by the explosion, even as victory seemed assured, Goku's expression never changed from that knowing smile. Because this wasn't the end. It was merely the opening move in a game whose rules only he understood. The explosion expanded, consuming the arena, forcing the Z-Fighters to shield themselves from the raw power. And in that blinding light, a single thought echoed through every watching mind. If this is just the beginning, what comes next? The dust began to settle like a funeral shroud over what had once been the Cell Games arena. Where smooth stone once stood, only a massive crater remained, still glowing with residual energy from Goku's unprecedented attack. The Z-Fighters slowly lowered their defensive positions, eyes straining to see through the aftermath. Krillin was the first to speak, his voice barely a whisper. Did he do it? Is it over? Yamcha grabbed his friend's shoulder, hope and disbelief warring on his scarred face. That attack, I've never seen anything like it, not even from Goku. But Piccolo's expression remained grim, his enhanced senses picking up what the others couldn't yet perceive. No, look at Goku. All eyes turned to where Earth's defender floated, still in his post-attack stance. No celebration, no relief, just that same serene expression as if he were waiting for something everyone else had missed. The silence stretched, broken only by the sound of settling debris and Mr. Satan's distant whimpering. Then, from the center of the crater, movement. A single piece of purple bioarmor, no larger than a fist. It twitched, pulsed, and then erupted into a writhing mass of cellular reconstruction that defied every law of biology. Cell reformed himself piece by piece, his perfect form rebuilding from near annihilation. First his core, then his limbs, finally his head with its crown-like protrusions. Within seconds he stood whole again, not even breathing hard despite having just survived an attack that could have vaporized a moon. Magnificent, Cell's voice carried across the battlefield, tinged with something that might have been respect. To think you could integrate instant transmission into an offensive technique, the Yardratians would be horrified by such a perversion of their peaceful art. Goku descended slowly, touching down on the shattered arena floor with deliberate calm. You took that pretty well. Guess Dr. Jiro really did his homework on regeneration. Piccolo cells enhanced by my perfect design, Cell flexed his restored form, not a scratch remaining. Though I must admit, that actually stung. No one has made me feel pain since achieving this form. Vegeta's fists clenched so tight his gloves began to tear. The fool Kakara had revealed his ultimate technique and accomplished nothing. Worse, he'd given Cell valuable data on a move that could have been their ace in the hole. Typical low-class warrior thinking. But Trunks noticed something his father missed in his anger. Goku's energy hadn't dropped. Despite unleashing such a devastating attack, his power level remained rock steady. That kind of energy control was beyond even what they'd witnessed in the hyperbolic time chamber. So, Cell continued, his tail swaying with renewed confidence, shall we continue this dance? Or was that your best shot? Goku's response shocked everyone. He laughed. Not his usual carefree chuckle, but something deeper. Actually, yeah, that was pretty much my best shot. At least the best I can do without destroying the planet. The admission sent ripples of panic through the Z-Fighters. If Goku's strongest technique had failed, what hope did they have? But before despair could take root, Goku continued. Which is why I'm done here. The words hit like physical blows. Cell's perfect features contorted in confusion. Excuse me? I forfeit, Goku said simply, already turning toward his companions. This match is yours, Cell. The bio-android's confusion transformed into rage. You can't be serious. Our battle has barely begun. I haven't shown you a fraction of my true power. And you won't need to, at least not against me. Goku's smile never wavered as he walked away from the most powerful being on Earth. I know when I'm outmatched. You're stronger than me, Cell. In a drawn-out fight, you'd win. Krillin's jaw dropped. Goku, what are you doing? If you can't beat him, who can? That's a good question, Goku mused. Then his eyes found his son. Hey, Gogan, you're up. The words might as well have been a thunderbolt. Every eye turned to the 11-year-old boy in his purple gi, his face a mask of shock and terror. Gohan, who had never won a serious fight in his life. Gohan, who still had nightmares about Frieza. Gohan, who everyone treated as a child because that's exactly what he was. Dad, no. Gohan's voice cracked. I can't. You know I can't. Sure you can. Goku's confidence was absolute, terrifying in its certainty. You're stronger than you know, son. Stronger than any of us if you just let it out. Vegeta exploded. Have you lost your mind, Kakarot? You'd send a child to die for your cowardice? He won't die, Goku's tone carried an edge that made even the Saiyan Prince step back. He'll win. Cell watched this family drama with growing amusement. How touching. The father sacrifices his son to save his own pride. Very well, I'll play along. Come, young Gohan, let me show you how your father has failed you. But Piccolo saw deeper. His fusion with Kami had given him wisdom beyond his years, and in Goku's eyes he recognized something that chilled him to his core. This wasn't desperation. This wasn't madness. This was a plan, cold and calculated in a way the innocent Saiyan had never been before. What had Goku seen in that year of training? What had he discovered about his son that justified this insane gamble? Gohan walked toward the arena on legs that felt like water. Each step was a betrayal of his instincts screaming to run. Behind him, he heard Krillin arguing with his father, heard Vegeta's contemptuous snorts, heard Trunks trying to volunteer in his place. But loudest of all was the silence from Piccolo, his first teacher, his protector. Even Mr. Piccolo wasn't stopping this. Which meant his father might be right, or they were all about to watch him die. Shell waited with the patience of a predator, studying the boy who approached. Yes, he could sense the hidden power Goku spoke of. Buried deep, locked away by fear and gentleness. It would be amusing to draw it out before the end, to show Goku how wrong he'd been to put faith and potential over reality. Tell me, young warrior, Cell's voice dripped false sympathy. Do you understand what your father has done? He's traded your life for a few more minutes of his own. That's not true, Gohan's voice was small but steady. My dad doesn't think like that. Doesn't he? Then why aren't you strong enough to protect yourself? Why didn't he train you to win instead of sending you to slaughter? The words cut deep because they echoed Gohan's own fears, but before he could respond, Goku called out one last time. Hey Gohan! Remember what I taught you about the Kamehameha? It's not about the power you put in, it's about the moment you choose to use it. Cryptic words that meant nothing to the fighters watching. But to Gohan, who had spent a year learning from his father in that timeless dimension, they carried weight. The perfect Kamehameha wasn't about size or strength. It was about understanding your opponent, finding the exact moment when all their power meant nothing. Just like his father had done to Cell moments ago, not to win, but to prove a point. The comprehension hit Gohan like a physical blow. His father hadn't failed. He demonstrated exactly what needed to be done, then stepped aside to let the only person who could actually do it take the stage. because Goku had seen what no one else had. In their year of training, in those moments when Gohan's hidden power had leaked through, the father had recognized a terrible truth. His son wasn't just stronger, he was fundamentally different. Where Goku fought with joy and Vegeta with pride, Gohan fought with something else entirely. Rage. And Cell, in his perfect arrogance, was about to unleash it. The arena fell silent as father and son locked eyes across the battlefield. In that moment, a year's worth of memories flooded through Gohan's mind like a raging river. The hyperbolic time chamber, that pocket dimension where time meant nothing and everything, where a boy had entered seeking his father's approval and emerged carrying a burden he never asked for. It had started so simply. Father and son training together without the world's immediate peril hanging over them. Goku had begun with the basics, reforging Gohan's foundation from the ground up. Every punch, every kick, every energy blast practiced until perfection became reflex. But that wasn't where the real training happened. The real training came in the quiet moments, when exhaustion forced them to rest, and Goku would tell stories. Not the heroic tales Gohan expected, but moments of failure. Times when strength wasn't enough, when Goku had watched friends die because he'd been too weak, too slow, too proud to see the bigger picture. Power isn't everything, Gohan, his father had said during one such rest, both of them fading in that white void. I learned that the hard way against Raditz. I was stronger than him in raw power, but he was smarter. He used your rage against me. Gohan remembered, flinching at the memory. His first battle, his first transformation, born from seeing his father suffering. I couldn't control it. No, but you could feel it, right? That moment when everything else fades away and there's just power. Goku's expression had been distant, seeing something beyond the chamber's walls. That's your gift, son. Not the rage itself, but what lies beyond it. The training had shifted then. Instead of suppressing Gohan's anger, Goku began drawing it out. Controlled bursts during sparring sessions, meditation exercises that walked the knife's edge between calm and fury. Most disturbing of all, Goku would sometimes stop mid-fight and just take hits, letting his son watch him get hurt, waiting for that telltale spike in power. It worked. By the 6th month, Gohan could tap into his hidden strength at will. Not fully, never fully without genuine emotion behind it, but enough to understand what he truly was. The power that emerged wasn't like his father's golden Super Saiyan glow. It was sharper, harder, carrying an edge that made even Goku step back the first time he saw it fully manifest. Now, standing before Cell, Gohan understood why his father had put him here. Not because Goku couldn't win. That perfect Kamehameha had proven he could at least match Cell blow for blow. But because winning wasn't enough, Cell would just regenerate, adapt, come back stronger. They needed something more, something final. They needed what Gohan became when pushed too far. Cell made the first move, a casual backhand meant to establish dominance. Gohan blocked it, the impact sending shockwaves through his small frame but not moving him an inch. The bio-android's eyes narrowed slightly. The boy was stronger than his size suggested. Interesting. Let's see how you handle this. The next attack came faster, a combination of punches and kicks that would have reduced a normal fighter to paste. Gohan weaved between them, his movements efficient but defensive, never attacking, only surviving. Cell's amusement grew with each failed strike. The boy was skilled but holding back, just like his father. From the sidelines, Krillin couldn't watch. This is insane. He's just a kid. But Piccolo grabbed his shoulder, his voice low and urgent. Look closer, look at Goku. Earth's defender stood perfectly still, arms crossed, that serene expression never wavering. But his eyes told a different story. They tracked every movement, analyzed every exchange, waiting for something specific. This wasn't a father watching his son get brutalized. This was a chess master watching pieces move into position. Cell grew bored with the game, his speed doubled, then tripled. Gohan's defense began to crack, glancing blows slipping through, each one drawing blood. The boy stumbled, fell, pushed himself back up, only to be knocked down again. Yet still, he didn't fight back with his full power. Pathetic, Cell sneered, grabbing Gohan by the hair and lifting him to eye level. Your father's faith in you is misplaced. You have power, I can sense it, but you lack the will to use it. Perhaps pain will educate you. The knee to Gohan's stomach drove all air from his lungs. The following elbow to his back sent him crashing into the arena floor, creating a child-sized crater. Cell floated down casually, each step deliberate, savoring the moment. Gohan! Chi-Chi's scream cut through the air from where she watched with Bulma and the others. Goku, stop this! He's going to kill our baby! But Goku didn't move. Didn't even flinch as Cell's foot came down on Gohan's back, grinding him deeper into the stone. His faith remained absolute, terrible in its certainty. Because he remembered the moment everything changed. Deep in their training, when Gohan had finally asked the question that had haunted him since Namek. Dad, why do you like fighting so much? Goku had paused mid-stretch, considering. I guess because it makes me feel alive. Every fight is a chance to get stronger, to push past my limits. It's fun. Fun? Gohan's voice had carried something Goku had never heard before. Judgment. People die because of fights. Piccolo died. Krillin died. You almost died. How is that fun? Those were different. We were protected. No, Gohan had stood, energy crackling around him. You enjoyed it, even against Frieza. Even when he was killing everyone, part of you was happy to have such a strong opponent. I could feel it. The accusation had hit harder than any physical blow, because it was true. Even in his darkest moments, Part-Tart Goku thrilled at the challenge. It was his Saiyan nature, as fundamental as breathing. You're right, Goku had admitted, but you're different, aren't you? When you fight, really fight, it's not for fun. I hate it. The words had come out raw, honest. I hate hurting people. I hate that I'm good at it. I hate that everyone expects me to be like you. But when someone hurts the people I care about, Gohan's power had spiked, golden entered darkening to something else, something beyond Super Saiyan. When I see my friends suffering, my family in danger, something inside me breaks, and what comes out isn't me anymore. It's something that doesn't just want to win, it wants to punish, to make them pay for every scream, every tear, every drop of blood. That was the moment Goku understood. His son didn't have a warrior's heart. He had something far more dangerous. A protector's rage combined with power that defied measurement. The perfect weapon against perfect evil. Back in the present, Cell continued his systematic destruction of Gohan's body. But something was changing. With each blow, the boy's energy didn't decrease. It condensed, compressed, building like pressure in a volcano. His eyes, when Cell allowed him to raise his head, had lost their tears. What remained was something colder. Magnificent, Cell breathed, sensing the shift. There you are, the real you, hiding behind that gentle facade. Show me, boy. Show me the monster your father created. Android 16 watched from his position near the fighters, his mechanical mind processing thousands of scenarios. His scanners read the energy building in Gohan's small frame and came to a single conclusion. If that power released fully, uncontrolled, the collateral damage would be catastrophic. Moving with purpose, the gentle android approached Goku. You're playing a dangerous game. Your son's power is unstable. If he loses control, he won't. Goku's certainty was absolute. That's why I showed him the perfect Kamehameha first, to remind him that power without purpose is meaningless. He knows what he needs to do. And if you're wrong... For the first time, Goku's smile faltered slightly. Then I'll have destroyed my son for nothing, but I'm not wrong. I can't be. Because if I am, then sending him out there isn't strategy. It's just a father sacrificing his child. The weight of that admission hung between them as Cell's torture continued, but 16 saw what others missed. Each blow that landed on Gohan was precisely calculated, designed to hurt but not cripple, to build rage without causing permanent damage. Cell wasn't just brutal, he was surgical in his cruelty, which meant he knew exactly what he was doing, and exactly what he was unleashing. Tell me, young Gohan. Cell lifted the boy by his throat, bringing him to eye level. What will it take? How many need to die before you show me your true face? Shall I start with the bald one? He seems fragile. Or perhaps the woman screaming for you. Mothers make such distinctive sounds when they watch their children suffer. The threat against Chi-Chi did something. Gohan's entire body went rigid, his pupils contracting to pinpoints. The temperature around them dropped 10 degrees in an instant. There it is, Cell whispered, genuinely excited. The beast awakens, but not quite enough. You need proper motivation. With casual cruelty, Cell tossed Gohan aside and raised his hand toward the Z-Fighters. Energy began gathering at his palm, aimed directly at the group. Choose quickly, show me your power, or watch them die. Starting with, his aim shifted, locking onto Krillin, the comic relief. Time slowed to a crawl. Gohan saw the energy building, saw Krillin's eyes widen in recognition of his death, saw his father still standing motionless with that terrible faith, and in that moment, something fundamental inside Gohan's soul finally snapped. The sound wasn't dramatic, just a small crack, like ice breaking underfoot, but the effect was immediate and terrifying. The broken child on the ground vanished, replaced by something else, something that stood slowly, deliberately, energy beginning to rise not in waves but in a steady, inexorable tide. No, Gohan's voice had changed, tearing harmonics that shouldn't exist in a human throat. You don't touch them. Cell lowered his hand, smile widening. He'd won. The boy was finally going to show his true power. What happened next would be glorious. What he didn't realize was that Goku had won too, because his son hadn't lost control. The power building wasn't the wild rage of previous transformations. It was focused, directed, carrying the precision Goku had spent a year teaching. The perfect warrior was about to be born. Not from joy of battle or Saiyan pride, but from a simple truth Goku had recognized in his gentle son. Sometimes the most dangerous fighters are the ones who never wanted to fight at all. The air itself seemed to hold its breath as Gohan stood, energy crackling around his small frame like golden lightning. But this wasn't the warm, almost welcoming glow of a standard Super Saiyan transformation. This energy had edges, sharp enough to cut reality itself. The ground beneath his feet didn't crack, it simply ceased to exist, disintegrated by power that defied comprehension. Cell's smile widened, genuine joy flooding his perfect features. Yes, this is what I've been waiting for. Show me everything. But Gohan didn't move, didn't attack, he simply stood there, head bowed as his power continued to climb beyond anything the Z-Fighters had thought possible. Vegeta's scouter would have exploded 10 times over trying to quantify what was happening. This wasn't just a power increase, this was evolution in real time. Impossible, Trunks breathed, taking an involuntary step back. That power, it's beyond Super Saiyan, beyond anything. Piccolo felt it most acutely, his Nemkian senses screaming warnings. The gentle child he'd trained, the boy who apologized to trees when his energy blasts missed their targets, was transforming into something that made perfect Cell look like a warm-up act. And the most terrifying part, the transformation wasn't even complete. Lightning began to arc across the battlefield, not from the sky, but from Gohan himself. Each bolt carved gouges in the earth, turned sand to glass, made the air itself conduct electricity. His hair, already golden from the Super Saiyan state, began to shift, not just standing more upright, but actually growing sharper, more defined. One bang fell across his face like a blade. Then came the scream! It started low, building from somewhere deeper than lungs could reach. A sound of pure rage, refined by pain, focused by love into something that could shatter mountains. The arena floor didn't just crack, it liquefied, stone turning to magma under the sheer pressure of Gohan's transformation. Cell's excitement flickered for just a moment as the boy's power exceeded his calculations. This wasn't just hidden potential being released. This was something new, something that shouldn't exist according to all known limits of Saiyan biology. But perfection adapted, that's what made him perfect. Cell Juniors! The bio-android's tail contracted, birthing 7 miniature versions of himself. Each one emerged with power levels that would have made Frieza weep, their high-pitched laughter a mockery of childhood innocence. Play with his friends while we conduct our experiment. Don't kill them too quickly. The small blue creatures launched themselves at the Z-Fighters with sadistic glee. Krillin barely managed to block the first assault, his arms going numb from the impact. Yamcha found himself driven to his knees within seconds. Even Vegeta and Trunks struggled against opponents that matched their Super Saiyan strength with cruel efficiency. No! Tien's tri-beam barely slowed one junior as it wrapped its tail around his throat. Can't breathe. The sight of his friends and mentors being tortured should have completed Gohan's transformation instantly, should have pushed him over the edge into mindless rage, but something unexpected happened. The boy's power stabilized, crystallizing at a level that made the ground itself groan in protest. His eyes opened, revealing not the teal of standard Super Saiyan, but something deeper, ancient, knowing. I understand now. Gohan's voice carried perfectly across the battlefield despite being barely above a whisper. This is what you wanted to teach me, wasn't it, Dad? Not how to lose control, but how to choose when to let go. Goku's smile was answer enough. Cell observed this development with interest. Fascinating. You're maintaining consciousness despite that level of power. Your father trained you well. No, Gohan's response was immediate. Certain. He trained me perfectly. The attack came without warning. One moment Gohan stood motionless. The next he was simply there, fist bit in the stomach of the Cell Jr. attacking Krillin. The creature's eyes bulged comically before it exploded into purple mist, destroyed so thoroughly that not a single cell remained. The other juniors paused their assault, primitive minds trying to process what had just happened. That pause cost them everything. Gohan moved between them like death itself, each strike precise, economical, and absolutely final. No wasted movement, no excessive force, just the exact amount of power needed to ensure complete cellular destruction. In less than 3 seconds, all 7 Cell Juniors had been reduced to memory. The Z-Fighters stared in shocked silence. They'd been fighting for their lives against opponents that Gohan had dismissed like gnats. But more unsettling than the power was the expression on the boy's face. No satisfaction, no rage, just cold mechanical efficiency. Excellent. Cell clapped slowly, genuinely impressed. You've exceeded my wildest expectations. That form, that power, that control, you truly are your father's son. But tell me, young warrior, can you maintain that clarity when faced with a real challenge? Cell's aura exploded outward, his own power rising to match Gohan's. The perfect bio-android had been holding back, keeping reserves for just such an occasion. His muscles expanded slightly, definition becoming more pronounced as his cells optimized themselves for maximum output. Shall we dance? They met in the center of what had been the arena, their collision sending shockwaves that flattened mountains miles away. But where their earlier fights had been displays of raw power, this was something else entirely. Gohan moved with a fluidity that made Cell's perfect form seem mechanical by comparison. Each dodge flowed into the next attack, each block became a counter. The boy wasn't fighting with rage anymore, he was fighting with purpose. Cell adapted quickly, his bioengineered body learning from each exchange. But for every adjustment he made, Gohan had already moved on to something new. It was like trying to catch smoke with bare hands. Yes, Cell laughed even as Gohan's fist connected with his jaw, sending him spinning. This is what I wanted. Show me the warrior your father saw in you. But Gohan's expression remained cold, focused. When he spoke, his voice carried no emotion. You killed Android 16. You tortured my friends. You threatened my mother. This isn't about what you want anymore. The battle intensified. Cell unleashed combinations of stolen techniques. Frieza's death beam merged with Tien's multiform, creating dozens of lethal energy attacks from multiple angles. But Gohan moved through them like they were rain, his smaller body an advantage as he slipped through gaps in the assault. Then Gohan did something unexpected. He stopped dodging, stood completely still as Cell's next punch approached. The bio-android's fist connected with Gohan's face and shattered. Not Gohan's face, Cell's perfect fist, crumbling like it had struck something beyond the physical. What? Cell regenerated instantly, but stared at his reformed hand in shock. My dad taught me that power comes from need, Gohan said quietly. Right now I had to be stronger than you, so I am. The truth of Super Saiyan 2 revealed itself. This wasn't just a power multiplication, it was potential relays. Limits removed, the body and mind united in singular purpose. Gohan had become exactly as strong as he needed to be to protect what mattered. Cell attacked again, pouring everything into his assault. But now each blow that landed on Gohan seemed to hurt Cell more than his target. The boy had become something untouchable, not through technique, but through sheer will. Impossible. Cell jumped back, genuinely disturbed for the first time. My perfect form can't be. Perfection doesn't exist. Gohan interrupted. My dad knew that. That's why he could always surpass his limits. You're stuck at yours. To prove his point, Gohan finally went on the offensive. His movements were economical, almost gentle. A palm strike to Cell's chest that caved in his entire torso. A simple kick that removed both legs. Each attack delivered with the minimum force necessary for maximum damage. Cell regenerated frantically, but something had changed. Each regeneration took a fraction longer. Each reformed limb seemed slightly less perfect than before. Gohan was systematically exhausting Cell's cellular reserves, forcing him to rebuild himself over and over. Stop playing with him, Vegeta shouted from where he watched. Finish it. But Piccolo understood what Vegeta didn't. He's not playing, he's making sure Cell can come back. Every regeneration weakens him. Indeed, Cell's perfect form was beginning to show cracks. His movements became desperate, his attacks wild, the calculated perfection replaced by animal panic as he realized what was happening. I won't lose. Cell's aura exploded outward as he pushed his power beyond safe limits. I am Dr. Gero's greatest creation. I am evolution's pinnacle. I am... Alone, Gohan finished. That's what you are. Just like I was when this started. But look around. Cell's eyes darted to the Z-Fighters, battered, bloodied, but standing, supporting each other, ready to continue fighting despite the overwhelming odds. Then he looked at Gohan, who stood not as an individual warrior but as their representative, their combined will given form. That's the difference between us, Gohan continued. You absorbed others to gain power. I fight alongside them. Your perfection is isolation. Our imperfection is connection. The truth hit Cell harder than any physical blow. His perfect form, his ultimate evolution, it had made him powerful but alone. While Gohan, weaker in base form, had something Cell could never absorb or replicate. Purpose beyond himself. With a wordless scream of rage, Cell abandoned all pretense of technique. He charged at Gohan with pure killing intent. Perfect form blazing with power that cracked the planet's surface. Gohan met him head-on, and the collision that followed would be remembered as the moment perfection fell to purpose. The collision between Cell and Gohan redefined what combat could be. Each strike created vacuum pockets in the air that thundered when they collapsed. Their movements painted contrails of golden energy across the sky, creating a light show visible from space. But for all Cell's perfect technique and adaptive capability, he was losing ground. Gohan's attacks came from impossible angles, his smaller frame allowing for flexibility Cell's perfect form couldn't match. More disturbing was the boy's expression. No strain, no effort, just that terrible calm as he systematically dismantled everything Cell threw at him. A knee to the solar plexus folded Cell in half. An elbow to the back of his neck sent him cratering into the ground. Before he could recover, Gohan was there, foot planted on his chest, pressing down with force that made the bio-android's perfect bones creak. You made a mistake. Gohan's voice carried no emotion, no satisfaction. You threatened my family. My friends, that was unforgivable. Cell's response was to laugh, spitting purple blood. Mistake? This is exactly what I wanted. You've become magnificent, the perfect warrior. No. Gohan increased the pressure, watching cracks spread across Cell's chest armor. I'm not a warrior. I never wanted to be. I'm just someone who won't let you hurt anyone else. The systematic destruction continued. Gohan broke Cell's left arm with clinical precision, shattered his tail at 3 different points, each injury calculated to cause maximum pain while preventing regeneration from kicking in too quickly. It wasn't fighting anymore, it was punishment. From the sidelines, even Vegeta felt uncomfortable watching. This wasn't how Saiyans fought. There was no joy, no pride, no honor in what Gohan was doing. Just cold, mechanical dismantling of an opponent who had already lost. Goku's voice cut through the violence. That's enough. His son paused, foot raised for another crushing blow. He hasn't paid enough. Not for what he's done, what he would have done. Maybe not. But this isn't you. You're better than this. For a moment, Gohan's power flickered, the child behind the transformation peeking through. In that instant of hesitation, Cell made his move. Not an attack, but something far worse. His body began to expand. If I can't have perfection, Cell gasped through broken teeth, then no one can. I'm going to self-destruct. This entire planet will be nothing but space dust. The swelling accelerated, Cell's form bloating grotesquely as every cell in his body converted to explosive energy. The readings were catastrophic. When he detonated, Earth wouldn't just be destroyed. It would be erased from existence. Gohan's power vanished like a blown-out candle, the boy stumbling backward in horror. No, I didn't mean. I just wanted to... 1 minute, Cell wheezed, his form now nearly spherical. Maybe less. Say goodbye, your precious planet, boy. This is what your power accomplished. Panic erupted among the Z-Fighters. Vegeta tried charging an attack, only for Piccolo to grab his arm. Any impact might trigger the explosion early. They were helpless, watching their world's final minute tick away. There has to be something, Krillin looked desperately between his friends. Goku, you have a plan. But Earth's defender was already moving, walking toward his son with that same serene expression. He placed a hand on Gohan's shoulder, feeling the boy trembling with guilt and fear. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I let the power control me, and now... Hey, Goku's voice was gentle, loving. You did great. Better than I ever could have. You protected everyone, just like I knew you would. But Cell... Leave Cell to me. Goku turned to face his swelling opponent, no fear in his eyes. I know what I have to do. The realization hit everyone simultaneously. Piccolo stepped forward. Goku, no! There has to be another way. There isn't. Goku's smile was sad but certain. I can't move him fast enough or far enough to save Earth. But I can take him somewhere else. Somewhere the explosion won't hurt anyone. Where? Vegeta demanded, though he already knew the answer. Goku placed 2 fingers to his forehead, focusing on a key signature impossibly far away. King Kai's gonna be mad at me. But hey, at least his planet's already small. Dad, no! Gohan grabbed his father's arm. You can't. There has to be another way. I won't let you. Goku knelt, bringing himself to his son's eye level. This isn't your fault. This is my choice. And you know what? I'm okay with it. Because I gotta see the man you're becoming. Strong enough to protect everyone. Gentle enough to know when to stop. You're going to be better than I ever was. Tears streamed down Gohan's face. Around them, the other Z-Fighters stood frozen, watching a hero prepare for his final act. Chi-Chi's scream echoed from the distant cliff where she watched with Bulma and the others. Tell your mother I love her, Goku continued, his hand never leaving Gohan's shoulder. Tell her I'm sorry for all the times I wasn't there, and tell her she raised one hell of a son. 20 seconds. Cell's voice was barely human now, distorted by his grotesque expansion. Goku stood, his hand moving to Cell's bloated form. The bio-android's eyes widened in understanding. No, my perfect death. You can't. Sorry, Cell. Goku's grin was genuine now, the warrior enjoying one last impossible moment. But a good friend taught me that sometimes winning means knowing when to lose. Goodbye, everyone. Take care of each other. The air shimmered. Reality bent. And then they were gone. The silence that followed was deafening. Gohan stood frozen, hands still outstretched toward where his father had been. The other fighters stared at empty space, minds struggling to process what had just happened. Then, from impossibly far away, they felt it. A flash of ki so brief it might have been imagination. Goku's signature there and gone in an instant, swallowed by an explosion that would have turned Earth to memories. Son Goku was dead, again. But this time, he'd taken Earth's greatest threat with him. Gohan fell to his knees, power completely gone. Just a child who'd lost his father. His scream of anguish echoed across the battlefield, raw and primal and utterly human. The mighty warrior who'd brought Cell to his knees was gone, leaving only a broken boy behind. But the story wasn't over. because in the depths of space, in the scattered atoms of what had been perfect Cell, something stirred. A single cell, protected by redundancies even Dr. Gero hadn't fully understood, began to pulse with life. And with memory. 7 days passed in a haze of grief and disbelief. The world celebrated Cell's defeat, ignorant of the price paid for their survival. Mr. Satan claimed credit for the victory, spinning tales of trick explosions and light shows that the traumatized masses eagerly believed. Better a comfortable lie than the terrible truth that gods walked among them. At the Sun residence, a different kind of aftermath played out. Chi-Chi hadn't spoken since Goku's sacrifice, moving through her days like a ghost. Gohan spent his time training, pushing his body to exhaustion in a desperate attempt to outrun his guilt. The power that had made him unstoppable against Cell now felt like poison in his veins. "It should have been me," he said for the 100th time, striking the training dummy Goku had lit years ago. "I had the power. I could have stopped him without anyone dying." Piccolo watched from the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Your father knew what he was doing. He always did, even when it seemed like madness." "Did he?" Gohan's fist went through the dummy, reducing it to splinters. Or did he just see another chance to be the hero? Another glorious death for the great son Goku? The bitterness in those words would have shocked anyone who knew the gentle boy. But Piccolo understood. Grief and guilt were powerful transformers, turning love into rage, admiration into resentment. "You want someone to blame," Piccolo said quietly. "Fine, blame me. I'm the one who threw you into battle against the Saiyans, started you down this path. Let's not..." Or blame Vegeta. His pride created the situation with Frieza. Or blame Kami for not stopping Dr. Gero 20 years ago. Or blame the universe for making power necessary for survival. Piccolo's voice hardened. "But stop blaming your father for being who he was, and stop blaming yourself for being who you are." Before Gohan could respond, a familiar key signature flared on the edge of perception. Not possible. That energy was refined, controlled, but unmistakably Cell! The explosion of golden energy from Gohan's transformation shattered every window in the house. He rocketed skyward, Piccolo close behind, both racing toward an impossibility. In the wastelands where the Cell games had taken place, a figure stood waiting. Cell. Perfect Cell. Not just alive, but stronger than before, his aura crackling with power that exceeded even his previous peak. His regeneration had done more than restore him, it had evolved him. "Surprise!" Cell's voice carried across the distance, casual as ever. "Did you miss me?" The Z fighters arrived in seconds, forming a defensive line. Vegeta and Trunks powered up immediately, their Super Saiyan forms blazing defiance. Krillin and Tien took positions despite knowing they were outclassed. Yamcha tried his best. But Cell only had eyes for Gohan. Magnificent. Even in base form, I can sense your potential. Our last encounter taught me so much about power, about pushing beyond limits. Would you like to know how I survived? Shut up! Gohan's transformation completed, jumping straight to the form that had humiliated Cell for. "You killed my father! I won't let you!" The attack came faster than thought. Cell simply appeared in front of Gohan, hand wrapped around the boy's throat before anyone could react. Lesson 1. Never assume your enemy hasn't learned from defeat. He squeezed, and Gohan's power flickered. Something was wrong. The transformation that had come so easily before now felt distant, slippery. Cell's grip wasn't just physical, it was doing something to his ki flow. You see, when I regenerated, I gained more than just power. I gained understanding. Your transformation requires emotional balance, doesn't it? Rage focused by will. So what happens when I disrupt that balance? Purple energy flowed from Cell's hand, invasive and wrong. Gohan felt his power fragmenting, the Super Saiyan 2 form sliding away like water through his fingers. He crashed back to base form, gasping. Gohan! Trunks charged, sword flashing. Cell didn't even look, his tail whipping around to catch the blade inches from his neck. The sword shattered like glass. Patience. I'll play with you all eventually, but first, I have a gift for young Galgan. Cell threw the boy to the ground and raised his hand. Energy gathered, but not for an attack. Instead, he fired directly upward, the beam piercing the sky and spreading like an umbrella, a barrier sealing them in. There! Now we won't be interrupted. You see, Gohan, your father's sacrifice taught me something important. Power alone isn't enough. You need the will to use it properly. And you? Cell's smile was cruel. You're broken. That perfect warrior from our last fight is gone, replaced by a guilty child. To prove his point, Cell attacked, not with his full power, but with precise strikes designed to humiliate. Gohan tried to transform again, reaching for that well of power, but guilt and grief made it impossible to focus. Each failed attempt earned another punishing blow. The Z fighters tried to interfere, but Cell dealt with them almost casually. A backhand sent Vegeta through a mountain. An energy ring pinned Piccolo to the ground. The humans he simply ignored, their attacks bouncing off his perfect form like rain. This is pathetic. Cell grabbed Gohan by the hair, forcing him to watch his friends struggle. Where's that power that made me feel fear? Where's the warrior who broke my perfect body? I can't. Gohan's words came out bloodied, broken. Without my dad, I can't. Can't or won't. Cell's knee drove into Gohan's stomach, folding him in half. Your father died believing in you. Are you really gonna prove him wrong? That struck deeper than any physical blow. Goku had sacrificed everything because he believed Gohan could protect Earth. And here he was, failing completely, proving that his father's death meant nothing. From where he lay pinned, Piccolo saw the moment Gohan truly broke. Not his body, but his spirit. The light went out of the boy's eyes, replaced by acceptance of defeat. It was over. Then Vegeta did something unexpected. Get up. The Saiyan Prince stood despite injuries that should have kept him down, blood running from a dozen wounds. His pride, that unbreakable core of his being, refused to let him stay down while Kakarot's brat gave up. I said, get up. Vegeta's roar shook the battlefield. You think you're the only one who's lost someone? You think grief gives you the right to surrender? Your father was a fool, but he was a fool who never stayed down. And his son doesn't get to dishonor that by giving up. Vegeta... Trunks stared at his father in shock. Shut up, boy. I'm not done. Vegeta turned his glare back to Gohan. You want to wallow in guilt? Fine, but do it after you've won. Do it after you've proven that Kakarot's sacrifice meant something. Because right now, you're spitting on his grave. The words hit like physical blows, but more importantly, they hit true. Gohan's fists clenched, a spark of something not quite rage, not quite hope, flickering in his eyes. Cell noticed immediately. Oh, did the prince's speech inspire you? How touching. But inspiration won't give you the power you've lost. Maybe not. Gohan pushed himself to his feet, swaying but standing. But my dad taught me something else, something I forgot in all that power. He dropped into a familiar stance, hands cupping at his side. The position for the KAMEHAMEHA, but his energy was too low, too scattered to form anything meaningful. Cell laughed. You can barely stand, and you're trying the Turtle School's ultimate technique. Even your father's perfect Kamehameha couldn't. That's where you're wrong. Gohan's voice gained strength. My dad's Kamehameha wasn't perfect because of its power. It was perfect because of when he used it, because of why he used it. Blue energy began to spark between his palms, weak at first, barely visible, but growing, not from Gohan's depleted reserves, but from something else. Something Cell's perfect analysis couldn't quantify. Memory. In his mind, Gohan saw every Kamehameha his father had ever performed. The first one he'd witnessed as a child, eyes wide with wonder. The desperate blast against Vegeta that had broken Goku's body. The one on Namek, fueled by friendship and fury. And finally, that perfect shot against Cell himself, demonstrating exactly what the technique could be. Me! The energy doubled, not from power, but from understanding. The Kamehameha wasn't about destruction, it was about protection, about putting everything you are into a single moment of defiance against the darkness. Me! Cell's amusement faded. The energy building between Gohan's hands shouldn't be possible with his current power level. But it was there, growing stronger, carrying something that went beyond simple key manipulation. From the sidelines, Piccolo felt it first. That's not just Gohan's energy. He was right. In that moment of perfect clarity, Gohan wasn't drawing on his own power. He was channeling something greater. Every lesson his father had taught him, every moment of love and protection he'd experienced, every reason to keep fighting when his body screamed surrender. This is for my dad, Gohan whispered. And the building energy responded, flaring brilliant blue, for everyone who believes in me, for the earth he died protecting, and for the man he knew I could become.
Cat.
The Kamehameha that erupted from Gohan's hands defied every law of power scaling. It wasn't fueled by rage or transformation, but by something pure, love, grief, determination. The very emotions Cell had tried to break became the source of strength that surpassed any Super Saiyan form. Cell raised his own hands, forming a barrier with contemptuous ease. His perfect defense, capable of withstanding panic-breaking forces. The Kamehameha struck it and began to push through. Impossible. Cell poured more power into his defense, his perfect features twisting in disbelief. Your power, pal, is nothing. This can't. But it could, because Gohan had finally understood what his father had tried to teach him. True strength didn't come from transformation or hidden power. It came from having something worth fighting for, and the will to keep standing when everything seemed lost. The barrier cracked, Cell's eyes widened, and in that moment of shock, Gohan felt something else, a presence, warm and familiar, standing beside him, not physically there, but present nonetheless, guiding his hands, adding strength to his attack. Thanks, Dad, Gohan whispered and pushed everything he had into the attack. The Kamehameha broke through, engulfing Cell in blue fire. His scream of rage and disbelief echoed across the battlefield as the perfect being faced something his cellular structure couldn't adapt to. Not just energy, but the concentrated will of someone who refused to give up. When the light faded, Cell still stood, damaged, his perfect form marred by burns and missing chunks, but alive. His regeneration worked overtime, trying to repair damage that went deeper than the physical. You... Cell's voice shook with something that might have been fear. What are you? Gohan stood tall despite exhaustion that should have dropped him. His power was nearly gone, his body pushed beyond all limits, but his eyes burned with determination that made Cell take an involuntary step back. I'm my father's son, Gohan said simply, and I'm not done yet. The second cliffhanger had arrived. Because as Cell's regeneration struggled to repair the damage, something else was happening. The Z fighters, inspired by Gohan's display, were rising again, battered, bloodied, but not broken. And for the first time since his perfect resurrection, Cell faced a terrible realization. He might actually lose. Cell's regeneration sputtered, his perfect form struggling to repair damage that defied biological explanation. The Kamehameha hadn't just burned his cells, it had disrupted something fundamental in his structure. For the first time since achieving perfection, the bio-android felt vulnerable. Enough games! Cell's aura exploded outward, purple energy crackling with desperate intensity. I am perfection incarnate. I won't be defeated by a child's sentiment. His power doubled, then tripled, pushing into reserves Dr. Gero had built for absolute emergencies. The ground beneath him cracked and buckled, unable to withstand the pressure. This was Cell operating beyond his design parameters, burning through energy at an unsustainable rate. But he didn't care. Pride demanded victory. The assault that followed redefined brutality. Cell moved faster than sight. Each blow calculated to shatter bones and crush spirits. Gohan tried to defend, but exhaustion made him sluggish. A knee to the ribs sent him flying. A hammer blow to the back drove him into the earth. Cell appeared above him, both hands raised for a finishing strike. Die knowing you failed! The attack never landed. Piccolo's special beam cannon caught Cell in the shoulder, spinning him away. Not enough to seriously harm him, but sufficient for disruption. Vegeta followed up with a Big Bang attack to the back. Tien's tri-beam hammered Cell's chest. Even Krillin contributed, his Destructo Disc forcing Cell to dodge. Insects. Cell spread his arms, releasing an explosive wave that sent everyone tumbling. You dare interfere? Yeah, we dare. Krillin pushed himself up, grinning through blood. That's what we do. We're Earth's special forces, and protecting this planet is our job. Even if it kills us, Tien added, already charging another attack. Especially then, Yamcha managed, surprising everyone by still being conscious. Cell's eye twitched. These weaklings, these nothings, stood against perfection itself. It was insulting. Worse, it was effective. Every second spent dealing with them gave Gohan time to recover, to dig deeper into whatever well of power had produced that impossible Kamehameha. Fine, I'll erase you all together. Cell began to rise, energy gathering around him in a massive sphere. Not a focused attack, but an area effect devastation that would reduce everyone present to atoms. The Z fighters stood their ground knowing they couldn't escape, choosing to face death standing. Then Gohan moved. Not an attack, not a desperate charge. He simply placed himself between Cell and his friends, arms spread wide. That damaged body somehow finding strength to stand tall. No more, Gohan's voice carried despite its quietness. I won't let you hurt them anymore. With what power? Cell's energy ball swelled larger. You can barely stand. Your transformation is beyond reach. You have nothing left. I have them, Gohan glanced back at his friends, managing a smile. And that's enough. The words triggered another memory. Goku in the hyperbolic time chamber, exhausted from training, sharing one of his rare moments of complete honesty. You know what makes Earth special, Gohan? It's not that we're strong. Plenty of planets have strong fighters. It's that we stand together. Every time I've really won, it wasn't alone. Krillin, Piccolo, even Vegeta, they've all saved me when I needed it most. That's Earth's real power. Not any technique or transformation, but the bonds between us. Understanding flooded through Gohan like electricity. His father's perfect Kamehameha hadn't been about the technique at all. It had been a lesson, a final gift showing that true strength came from connection, from fighting not just with your power, but with your heart. Everyone, Gohan called out, his voice stronger. I need your help, not your energy, your trust. Believe in me, just for a moment. Believe we can win. The response was immediate, not a lending of ki like the spirit bomb, but something deeper. Piccolo's unwavering faith, Krillin's courageous heart, Tien's disciplined spirit, Yamcha's surprising determination, Vegeta's prideful acknowledgement, even from beyond, a warmth that could only be Goku's eternal optimism. Gohan's aura reignited. Not the sharp, violent energy of Super Saiyan 2, but something new. Golden light mixed with silver, power and serenity balanced perfectly. His hair rose but didn't spike, flowing like liquid metal. His eyes opened, revealing not teal or green, but a deep, infinite blue. What? Cell's energy ball wavered. What is this transformation? It's not a transformation. Gohan stepped forward, each movement causing reality to ripple around him. It's understanding. My dad knew I'd never be the warrior he was. I don't love fighting. I don't seek challenge. But that's okay, because I am something else. Another step. Cell involuntarily floated backward. I'm a protector, a guardian, someone who stands between the darkness and the light. And as long as I draw breath, as long as my friends believe in me, I won't let you win. Cell snarled and hurled his massive energy sphere. The attack that would have erased mountains descended like a fallen star. Gohan raised one hand, not to block, but to guide. The sphere struck his palm and simply stopped. No explosion, no struggle. The energy recognized something in Gohan's touch and submitted. Thank you for the energy, Gohan smiled, and the sphere compressed, reshaping itself. Now let me show you what Earth's defenders can really do. He brought his other hand up, the captured energy flowing between his palms. But this wasn't just Cell's attack anymore. It carried traces of everyone present. Piccolo's wisdom, Vegeta's pride, the humans' unbreakable spirits, and underneath it all a familiar warmth that whispered of orange ghee and impossible victories. This is our KAMEHAMEHA, Gohan announced, the energy shifting to that familiar blue. Not perfect, but together. Not the strongest, but unified. The technique my father mastered, evolved by everyone who fights for Earth. KAMEHAMEHA. Cell recognized his death in those syllables. This wasn't like before. This was inevitable, carried on wings of unity that his perfect isolation could never match. He gathered his remaining power for one last defense, one final rejection of defeat. I am perfect! I cannot lose! You were never perfect. Gohan's voice carried sadness now, just alone, and that's why you'll lose. Ha! The united Kamehameha erupted forward, not as a simple beam, but as a tapestry of light. Everyone watching could see themselves in it, their hopes, their dreams, their refusal to surrender. It met Cell's desperate counterattack and consumed it without slowing. Impossible! Cell's scream cut off as the energy engulfed him, but this time there would be no regeneration. The attack didn't just destroy his body, it unraveled the very concept of Cell, breaking down the stolen genetic markers, returning them to the void. In his last moments, Cell saw the truth. He had been perfect, a perfect weapon, a perfect killer, but he'd faced something beyond perfection. Connection, growth, the bonds that made imperfect beings surpass their limits. He'd lost, not to power, but to everything Goku had seen in his son. The last thought of the perfect being was surprisingly simple. I never stood a chance. The light faded. Where Cell had made his last stand, only scorched earth remained. Not even dust marked his passing. The perfect being had been perfectly erased. Gohan collapsed to his knees, the strange new form fading as exhaustion finally claimed its due. But he was smiling, tears streaming down his face as he looked at the clear sky. We did it, Dad. Together. The Z-fighters gathered around him, battered but alive. Even Vegeta approached, though he maintained his customary scowl. The world was safe. Cell was gone. And they'd learned something precious in the process. So, Krillin managed through his exhaustion. Anyone else feel like we just did something impossible? That's Tuesday for us, Yamcha laughed, then winced as his ribs protested. Piccolo placed a hand on Gohan's shoulder, pride evident in his features. Your father would be proud. You found your own path to strength. Yeah, Gohan looked at each of them in turn. But I couldn't have done it alone. At Kamehameha, it was all of us. High above, on a tiny planet in Otherworld, King Kai nursed his grudge while Goku watched the scene through divine perception. The Saiyan's smile could have lit galaxies. That's my boy, he whispered to the cosmos. Guess you didn't need me after all. But even in victory, questions remained. How had Gohan achieved that form? What was that perfect balance of power and serenity? And most importantly, what came next for Earth's defenders now that their greatest champion was gone? The third cliffhanger resolved into hope, because while Goku was dead, his legacy lived on. Not just in his son, but in everyone he'd inspired to stand against the darkness. The perfect Kamehameha had done more than defeat Cell. It had shown them all what they could come. 3 months passed like a dream. Without Cell's threat looming, Earth settled into an unusual peace. Cities rebuilt, people returned to their lives. Mr. Satan continued his theatrical claims of victory, now embellished with tales of secret techniques and government cover-ups. The world believed because the truth was too vast to comprehend. At Mount Paozu, life found new rhythms. Chi-Chi had given birth to Goten, a boy who looked so much like his father it made everyone's heart ache. Gohan balanced his time between helping raise his brother and the studies his mother insisted on. The scholar and the warrior coexisted uneasily within him. You're distracted again, Piccolo observed during one of their meditation sessions. The Namekian had taken to visiting regularly, drawn by concern for his former student. Gohan opened his eyes, abandoning the pretense of meditation. I keep thinking about that form. During the final attack against Cell, it felt different from Super Saiyan 2. More complete. You balance rage with purpose, Piccolo noted. Most transformations rely on a single emotion pushed to extremes. What you achieved was harmony. But I can't recreate it. Frustration bled through Gohan's calm facade. I've tried everything. Meditation, intense training, even having Vegeta insult Dad's memory. Nothing works. Because you're trying to force it. That form came from acceptance, not effort. You can't manufacture the conditions that created it. They were interrupted by an energy signature approaching fast. Vegeta landed with his typical dramatic flair, his training weights creating small craters. The Prince of Saiyans had thrown himself into training with renewed vigor since Cell's defeat, driven by the humiliation of being surpassed by a child. Boy, Vegeta's greeting was typically brusque. Stop wasting time with meditation. You have a responsibility to maintain your power. I train every day, Gohan protested. You go through the motions. There's a difference. Vegeta's scowl deepened. That power you displayed against Cell, it surpassed even Kakarot's wildest achievements. You touched something beyond Super Saiyan and you're content to let it slip away? It's not that simple. Nothing worth achieving ever is. Vegeta turned to leave, then paused. The Earth won't always have the luxury of united Kamehamehas and friendship speeches. Next time, you might stand alone. Be ready. After he left, Gohan and Piccolo sat in thoughtful silence. The prince's words carried uncomfortable truth. Cell had been defeated through unity, but what if the next threat didn't allow for such tactics? He's right, isn't he? Gohan finally asked. I'm letting Dad's legacy lip away because I'm afraid. Afraid of what? Of becoming what Cell said I was. A perfect warrior. Someone who finds joy in destruction. Gogan's fists clenched. When I fought him, when I had that power, part of me enjoyed hurting him. Enjoyed making him pay. That's not who I want to be. Piccolo considered his response carefully. Your father enjoyed fighting, but he never enjoyed hurting others. There's a difference between taking satisfaction in protecting people and taking pleasure in causing pain. You've always known that line. Trust yourself not to cross it. Their conversation was interrupted by Krillin's arrival, the monk landing with considerably less grace than Vegeta. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt, but we might have a situation. What kind of situation? Piccolo's tone sharpened. Dende says he's sensing something weird. Not a threat exactly, but disturbances. Like reality hiccuping. He thinks it might be connected to Cell's defeat. They flew to the lookout, where Earth's young guardian waited with furrowed brow. Dende had grown into his role, but moments like this reminded everyone how young he truly was. It started small, Dende explained, gesturing to his viewing pool. Tiny fluctuations in the dimensional barriers. But they're growing stronger. Look. The water showed seemingly random locations across Earth. A forest where trees grew backward. A lake that reflected different skies. A mountain that existed in two places simultaneously. Cell's destruction was absolute, Dende continued. Perhaps too absolute. He was composed of genetic material from multiple timelines, various dimensions. When Gohan erased him completely, it may have created gaps. Gaps? Gohan felt dread pooling in his stomach. Small tears where Cell's existence was forcibly removed. Reality is trying to heal itself, but the process causes distortions. Can you fix it? Krillin asked hopefully. Not from here. Someone would need to visit each distortion, stabilize the energy manually. It would require precise key control, and Dende hesitated. And? Piccolo prompted. And the ability to perceive multiple dimensional states simultaneously. The same kind of awareness Gohan displayed when he achieved that unique form against Cell. Everyone turned to look at Gohan, who suddenly felt very young despite his power. I don't even know how I did that. How am I supposed to? By trying, Piccolo interrupted. By accepting that your father's legacy isn't just about fighting, it's about stepping up when you're needed, especially when you're not sure you can succeed. The first distortion site was the forest Dende had shown them. As they approached, reality became increasingly unstable. Trees aged and returned to saplings in moments. Birds flew backward. The very air seemed to shimmer with temporal uncertainty. Stay back, Gohan warned the others. I can feel it pulling at my ki, like it's trying to exist in multiple states at once. He approached the distortion center, where a tree flickered between seed and ancient oak. The closer he got, the more his perception shifted. He could see the tree's entire life cycle simultaneously. Every spring bloom, every winter dormancy, every moment of its existence layered atop each other. This is what Cell's erasure caused, Gohan murmured, understanding flooding through him. He existed across multiple timelines because of his genetic makeup. When I destroyed him completely, I created a void where all those timelines intersected. Instinctively, he reached out with his ki, not to attack, but to understand. The energy responded, showing him the fracture in reality. It was like looking at a broken mirror where each shard reflected a different possibility. I need to harmonize them, Gohan realized. Not force them into one state, but help them find balance. He closed his eyes, reaching for that perfect balance he'd found against Cell, not the rage of Super Saiyan 2, but the unity of purpose that had created their combined Kamehameha. Slowly, carefully, he began to weave his ki through the distortion. The effect was immediate. The chaotic flashing slowed, then stopped. The tree settled into its proper age, the forest around it stabilizing. Reality exhaled in relief. You did it, Krillin cheered, but Gohan was already frowning. There are dozens more distortions, and each one I fix takes something out of me. Not physical energy, but he struggled for words. It's like I'm using pieces of my own stability to patch the holes. Then we'll help, Piccolo stated firmly. Show us what to do. But try as they might, the others couldn't perceive the distortions the way Gohan could. Whatever unique perspective he'd gained during Cell's defeat, it remained his alone. The burden of healing reality's wounds fell squarely on his young shoulders. Over the following weeks, Gohan traveled from distortion to distortion. Each one taught him more about the nature of ki, about the delicate balance that kept reality stable. He began to understand that his father's perfect Kamehameha hadn't just been about timing or emotional state. It had been about perceiving the exact point where all possibilities converged. You're growing stronger, Vegeta observed during one of Gohan's breaks. The prince had taken to following the restoration efforts, claiming it was excellent training to observe. Not stronger, Gohan corrected. More aware. Each distortion shows me how fragile everything really is, how easy it would be to break things beyond repair. And yet, you continue. Because someone has to? Because Dad would have. Because... Gohan paused, then smiled. Because it's the right thing to do? Vegeta made a disgusted noise, but there was approval in his eyes. The boy was developing a warrior's philosophy, even if it wasn't one the prince fully understood. The final distortion was the largest, located where Cell had first achieved his perfect form. Reality here wasn't just fractured, it was actively hostile, lashing out with temporal echoes of Cell's presence. Phantom images of the bio-android flickered in and out of existence, remnants of timelines that no longer were. This is beyond the others, Dende warned through telepathic link. The distortion is feeding on the residual emotion from that battle. Gohan, you need to be careful. But Gohan was already moving forward, drawn by necessity. At the distortion's heart, he found something unexpected. Not Cell, but an echo of his father, a temporal shadow from the moment Goku had made his sacrifice. Gohan reached out, but his hand passed through the image. The echo turned, and for a moment, father and son truly saw each other across the veil of death. Goku's smile was exactly as Gohan remembered, warm, proud, slightly mischievous. Not really here, kiddo, the echo spoke with Goku's voice. Just a memory caught in time. But maybe that's enough for what you need to hear. I miss you, Gohan's voice cracked. I'm trying to be strong, to protect everyone like you did, but you're not me, and that's perfect. The echo began to fade. Your strength isn't mine, Gohan. It never was. The perfect Kamehameha I showed you, that was my way. You'll find yours. Trust in that. Trust in yourself. As the echo disappeared, Gohan felt something shift inside him. The guilt he'd carried since Cell's defeat didn't vanish, but it transformed, became fuel for growth rather than chains holding him back. With newfound clarity, he reached into the massive distortion. This time, he didn't try to force stability. Instead, he offered understanding. He showed the fractured reality his memories, not just of battle, but of quiet moments. Goku teaching him to fish, Piccolo's gruff affection, his friends standing together against impossible odds. The distortion responded, recognizing something it had lost. Not power or perfection, but connection. Hostile energy calmed, then began to dissipate. Reality healed itself, accepting Gohan's offering of harmony over conflict. When it was done, Gohan stood in a normal field under normal sky. The last echo of Cell's existence had been laid to rest, and with it, a chapter of Earth's history closed. It's finished, he announced to his waiting friends. All the distortions are healed. And you? Piccolo asked, noting something different in his student's bearing. Gohan considered the question. I'm not healed. Not yet, but I'm healing. And I think I understand what Dad was trying to teach me. Not how to be the perfect warrior, but how to be perfectly myself. As they flew home together, none of them noticed the faint smile on Vegeta's face. The boy was finally beginning to understand what Kakarot had always known. True strength came not from transformations or techniques, but from knowing who you were and fighting for what mattered. The echoes of perfection had taught them all a valuable lesson. In the quiet of his study, Gohan compiled his notes from the dimensional restoration. What had started as crisis management had become something more, a dissertation on the nature of ki itself. His mother had insisted he document everything, her scholar's instincts recognizing the value in her son's unique experiences. The perfect Kamehameha, Gohan wrote, represents not maximum force, but optimal application. Father understood this instinctively. Where others saw a simple energy wave technique, he perceived infinite variations, each suited to specific moments. He paused, remembering. The way Goku had integrated instant transmission hadn't been a spontaneous innovation. Looking back, Gohan could see the preparation. How his father had spent their year in the time chamber experimenting with energy compression, with maintaining charged attacks while moving, with perceiving the half-second gaps in Cell's perfect defense. Every Kamehameha father ever performed was practice for that moment. Gohan continued writing, from his first clumsy attempt against Master Roshi's Burning Mountain to the desperate blast against Vegeta. Each failure taught him. Each success refined his understanding. The perfect Kamehameha wasn't born in battle, it was cultivated across a lifetime. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Trunks entered, carrying tea and his own questions. The future warrior had extended his stay, fascinated by this timeline's developments. Gohan, I've been thinking about your father's technique. In my timeline, he never achieved anything like that level of mastery. What made the difference? Gohan gestured for Trunks to sit. Time. In your world, Dad died before he could synthesize everything he'd learned. Here, he had 3 years after Namek, then a full year with me in isolation. That focused development time made all the difference. But it was more than just training, wasn't it? Yes. Gohan pulled out charts he'd drawn, mapping energy flow patterns. The instant transmission Kamehameha worked because Dad stopped thinking of techniques as separate entities. He integrated everything. Saiyan transformation, Earth's martial arts, Yardration space folding, even principles he'd observed from enemies. The perfect Kamehameha is the culmination of that integration. Trunks studied the diagrams with growing amazement. He planned the whole encounter with Cell. The initial attack wasn't meant to win, it was to demonstrate the principle, to show you what was possible when you stopped thinking in terms of power levels. Exactly. Dad knew Cell's perfection was also his weakness. He could adapt to any single technique or power pillar, but he couldn't adapt to conceptual innovation. By showing me that techniques could be fundamentally reimagined, Dad gave me the tool to create our united Kamehameha. They were interrupted by Vegeta's arrival. The prince had taken to these theoretical discussions with surprising interest, his tactical mind appreciating the strategic depth. You're overthinking it, Vegeta announced, though he took a seat. Kakarot's strength was always his simplicity. He didn't plan, he intuited. With respect, Vegeta, Gohan countered, that's exactly what Cell thought, and it's why he lost. Dad's simplicity was a mask for sophisticated combat understanding. He let opponents think he was just a powerful fool who relied on instinct. Gohan pulled out another notebook, this one filled with combat analysis. Look at the pattern. Every major victory Dad achieved came from opponents underestimating his tactical thinking. Vegeta, you thought he was just strong. Frieza thought he was just angry. Cell thought he was just desperate. They all missed the chess player hiding behind the brawler. Vegeta's expression darkened, but he didn't argue. The evidence was too compelling. The perfect Kamehameha, Gohan concluded, was genius disguised as desperation. Dad panned the entire fight with Cell setting it up. He showed his full power early to make Cell overconfident. He demonstrated standard Kamehameha variations to establish expectations. He even powered up the massive version to fix Cell's attention forward. Every move was calculated to make that instant transmission strike not just possible, but inevitable. Then why forfeit? Trunks asked. If he had such a perfect strategy, because winning the battle wasn't the goal, protecting Earth's future was. Gohan's voice carried hard-won understanding. Dad knew Cell would regenerate, knew that unless pushed beyond all limits, the android would keep coming back. He needed someone who could not just defeat Cell, but erase the concept of him. That required power born from protective instinct, not combat joy. So he sacrificed himself to trigger your transformation, Vegeta said slowly. Knowing you'd blame yourself, knowing that guilt would drive you to ensure his death meant something. The ultimate manipulation, Gohan agreed sadly, using his own death as a tactical element. It's brilliant and horrible and exactly what Dad would do to protect everyone. The room fell silent as they absorbed this. Goku's image as a simple-hearted warrior dissolved, replaced by something more complex. A man who understood his own limitations and orchestrated events to transcend them. But there's one more layer, Gohan added quietly. The perfect Kamehameha taught me something Dad couldn't say directly. That techniques aren't about the energy you put in, they're about the connections you make. He used instant transmission to connect 2 points in space. I used emotional resonance to connect multiple fighters' spirits. Both applications stem from the same principle. The Kamehameha is a bridge. A bridge? Trunks prompted. between intention and reality, between individual and collective, between what is and what must be. Gohan Einmo, remembering his father's last lesson. The perfect Kamehameha isn't about power or timing or tactical advantage. It's about understanding what needs connecting and having the will to build that bridge. Vegeta stood abruptly. Enough philosophy. If Kakarot's legacy is about innovation rather than power, then sitting here talking achieves nothing. We should be training, experimenting, pushing boundaries. As the prince left, Trunks lingered. Do you think your father knew how everything would play out? Gohan considered carefully. I think he knew the shape of it. Like seeing a mountain through fog. You know it's there, know roughly how tall it is, but the details remain hidden. Dad trusted in principles rather than certainties. He knew if he gave us the right tools, showed us the right path, we'd find our way. The perfect teacher, Trunks murmured. No, Gohan corrected gently. Just a father who loved his son enough to become what was needed. The perfection was never in the technique, it was in the intention behind it. As Trunks departed, Gohan returned to his writing. There was so much more to document, so much wisdom hidden in his father's seemingly simple actions. The perfect Kamehameha had been just the beginning. What other innovations lay dormant in the techniques they thought they knew? The genius of Son Goku wasn't that he'd mastered the Kamehameha. It was that he'd shown them mastery itself could be reimagined, and that lesson would echo through generations. 7 years had passed since Cell's defeat. 7 years since the perfect Kamehameha had rewritten the rules of combat. 7 years since Son Goku had chosen death to ensure life. The World Martial Arts Tournament arena buzzed with excitement. Gohan, now 18, stood in the competitor's area wearing an orange gi that honored his father while asserting his own identity. Beside him, Vegeta smirked at inferior opponents. Krillin stretched nervously. Even Piccolo had entered, disguised as a mysterious masked fighter. But the real surprise waited in the shadows. A familiar key signature, impossible yet unmistakable. Yo, Goku materialized with his signature grin, a halo floating above his head. Miss me? The reunion was chaos. Tears, laughter, Goten meeting his father for the first time. But through it all, Gohan noticed something. His father's energy felt different, refined in ways that 7 years of life couldn't have achieved. Otherworld has some interesting training partners, Goku explained later, as they caught up away from the crowds. But the best part? I finally had time to think, to understand what I'd been doing by instinct all those years. The perfect Kamehameha, Gohan guessed. Among other things, Goku's expression grew serious. Son, what I showed you against Cell, that was just the beginning. The Kamehameha, every technique really, they're not fixed forms, they're languages. And once you understand the grammar, he demonstrated, forming a Kamehameha between his palms. But instead of the familiar blue sphere, the energy took shapes, a spiral, a cube, even briefly forming kanji that spelled hope before dissolving. Every master who uses the Kamehameha changes it, Goku continued. Roshi made it about destruction. I made it about protection. You made it about connection. The technique evolves with its user. Then what makes one perfect? Gohan asked, though he suspected the answer. Nothing and everything. Goku let the energy fade. Perfection isn't a destination, son. It's a moment. A single instant where everything aligns need, ability, opportunity, will. My Kamehameha was perfect against Cell because that's exactly what that moment required. Your united Kamehameha was perfect because that's what your moment demanded. They stood in comfortable silence, father and son reunited across the boundary of death. In the distance, the tournament continued, humanity celebrating strength in its most basic form. But here, two warriors contemplated power's true nature. I wrote about you, Gohan admitted. About the technique, the strategy behind it. Some people think I'm overthinking, that you just got lucky. Goku laughed. Let them think that. The best techniques are the ones your opponents don't see coming because they're too busy looking at the obvious. Besides, his grin turned mischievous. Keeping people guessing is half the fun. A new key signature approached young Goten, dragging Trunks behind him. The 7-year-old who looked exactly like his father had his own questions. Dad, can you teach me the perfect Kamehameha? Trunks says his dad is stronger, but I told him you have the best techniques. Goku knelt to his son's level, that teaching instinct still strong. How about I teach you the regular Kamehameha first? Then when you're ready, you can find your own perfect version. But I want yours! That's the thing, kiddo. You can't have mine. The perfect Kamehameha I used, it only worked because it was mine in that moment, for that purpose. Yours will be different. Maybe it'll heal instead of hurt. Maybe it'll inspire instead of destroy. Maybe it'll do something we can't even imagine yet. As Goku began teaching Goten the basic stance, Gohan watched with new understanding. His father's legacy wasn't a technique to be copied. It was a principle to be explored. Every generation would rediscover the Kamehameha, reshape it to meet their needs. perfect it for their moments. The cycle continues, Piccolo observed, joining Gohan. Your father plants seeds, even from beyond death. Did you know? Gohan asked. When you trained me, did you see this future? I saw potential. Your father saw certainty. Piccolo's smile was rare but genuine. He knew that techniques die when they become rigid. By showing you perfection could be reimagined, he ensured the Kamehameha would outlive us all. The tournament day continued, but in this quiet corner, something more important was happening. Knowledge passed from father to son, from master to student, from one generation to the next. Not just the mechanics of a technique, but the philosophy behind it. The perfect Kamehameha hadn't been about power, it had been about possibility. And as young Goten's first attempt produced a tiny spark of blue light, that possibility was reborn. Some legacies are carved in stone, others are written in energy, passed from hand to hand, heart to heart, each bearer adding their own chapter to an endless story. The Kamehameha would outlive them all, and somewhere in another world, Master Roshi was probably complaining that these youngsters had completely missed the point of his original technique. But that too was part of the perfection, because the greatest techniques aren't the ones that remain unchanged. They're the ones that inspire change in others. As the sun set over the tournament grounds, Goku's time running short, he gathered his sons for one last lesson. Together, they performed the Kamehameha Goku's seasoned control, Gohan's innovative fusion, Goten's raw potential. 3 generations, 3 interpretations, one technique bridging past and future. In that moment, it was perfect.